After a brief electoral pause, we're back to invasions. And I, of course, screwed up first thing off the bat, which is I started setting up the reinforcements when actually I got to handle aging first. And this is a complex turn for aging. So we've got barbarian nations here, and I'm not sure which one's the earliest. France or Alemanni are 4. I think that's our earliest of them. So they're about to enter age 5. Excellent. Which is the first potential forced transition. And for forced transition, what happens is we take a look at this, and positives allow you to stay as barbarians. The Alemanni do not have a ton of money, so they're not going to get a negative for that. But they are also, I believe, not in a barbarian area, are they? Lotharingia is part of Gaul, I hope. I don't see a border on this side, and I think there may be one here. So that means there's no modifiers. So if we roll less than or equal to the nation's age, a 1 through 5, 50% chance we have to settle right now into a kingdom. Boom, there it goes. And now we look to see what happens. Okay. The young kingdom immediately, we're not there yet. The young kingdom age marker goes to 1. That'll be for the new turn, so I'm going to put it over here. Actually, we have, what the hell? Okay, these are barbarians. We have something new coming on, which is the Romano-British, which are just the Britons here, and we also have Sardinia revolting. And Rome is supposed to have fallen by this turn, and they haven't, but those shouldn't be there yet. So, okay. If there's an empty city set, okay, the Young Kingdom gets a bonus of $20 for its treasury. This was the Alemanni. Yeah. So they just flip over. And now they are a civilized nation. If there's an empty city, they get a level 1 city. Otherwise, maybe something grows. Well, there's an empty city in Burgundia. There's a city in Lotharingia. Which one do we want? And what does it mean? You know, so like Lotharingia is worth more, but does that mean we don't want it to be our city? I'm not sure. I'm going to make this my capital. So far, I am still subjecting the, I think they're still subjected. I didn't see anything there that transferring to a kingdom changes you from a vassal state. So they're still like vassals of Rome. It's probably not going to last very long. No. So yeah. Okay, and it would make sense. Okay. The horde is flipped to its capital side. It's assigned permanently to an existing city. Okay, so I think what happens is actually the capital increases the size of the city, and a level 1 city was founded here. So they're a level 1 city at +1, I think. I'm not positive of that. The horde is then flipped to its capital and is assigned to an existing city anywhere within the controlling provinces. This could be the newly founded one. So yeah, so now what we have is a capital. I don't know what that +5 is income. So we have a level 1 city with a level 1, with an additional level for being the capital. This is the only city we have here. If the Young Kingdom has no city at all, The horde counter remains unflipped until a city comes into its control. The kingdom may remain pagan or become Arian or Christian. Ooh, so if I become Arian or Christian, that triggers one of my victory point steps. The per income for non-heretical, that's if I become Catholic. And I don't remember, I think the Alemanni start out as Arian. I gotta look that up. We'll think about that in a moment. The nation, I'm not sure what advantage there is to being Aryan anyway. The nation is now civilized and no longer receives free units from the timetable as reinforcements. Well, okay, I cheated. I gave them one reinforcement, so I'll take that away. And this is important because now I can purchase units with my cash. I have to undergo all the complexity there. I'm going to start working my way through the different barbarians as I go. Figure out a good reason not to be barbarian right now. There are reasons, you know, as I extend. So like with Charlemagne, yeah, well, not with Charlemagne, but with the, who was that? I'm trying to remember who the first Merovingian Christian was, but this is Merovingius himself. I don't remember which one was. It may have been Clovis, but the first of the, you know, you kind of want to have a lot of territories and have a lot of income when you get that victory point bonus, but you want to make sure you're not like heading towards a declining situation. Are there advantages to being Christian? I'm having trouble figuring any out. Oh, and by the way, these are not Aryan, they're pagan. Now, I could declare myself Aryan. Not sure there's an advantage to that at all. I don't get victory points for it. I could still go Christian on any admin phase, so there's very little reason not to. On the other hand, it's not absolutely certain. Like the way the rules are written, I don't think you actually have to take those victory points the turn that you become Christian, but they're a one-time only thing, even though it's not kind of expressed that way over there. The Visigoths got lucky and were not converted, and none of the barbarian tribes that are sitting in barbarian lands got converted. The Vandals are a little younger. Now we're on the Huns, and the Huns have their special rules. This will be at the end of this turn. Military activation. So I age normally, and I just start looking at some of these other. Neither of these wants to convert yet, and then these guys are going to all age to age 1. Now we're entering into this, and I'm not sure what that means, so I'm going to have to look at that. Can't find anything about that symbol. Once we get up to here and start transitioning out of there, we start having to take additional decline levels, and we're already at double decline, so things could get very ugly very quickly. Maybe we should be looking at how Rome falls. Roman reunification can happen in the time if neither has collapsed. Oh, abandonment. You decide to abandon. It inflicts a single victory point penalty on the turn it occurs, which I didn't realize. And what does it do? It could create Britain early, which would be kind of cool. And the Romans get a partial economic. And they get victory points for abandoning it. Okay, well, yeah, we probably should have abandoned areas. We may be abandoning Africa. Should read these things. I mean, this is the difficulty with this game, and I have to say, it's not just this game. You have this kind of issue with EU the first time you play it. You have this kind of issue with La Grande Guerre, and some of the other AWE games that Thibault was not involved in. So, where there's just a ton of rules that are like squirreled away in various places, and I think this is a perfectly reasonable place to have it. It's just there's so much, you know. La Revolution Française definitely has it too. Okay, how do we collapse? I don't think we do. They can be taken without a siege. Ooh. Okay. Yeah. So I don't think there's anything special there. The creation of the Britons meant that our limites are gone. Limes, but whatever. And there's going to be this weird invasion where there's an alliance between the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. And the Jutes have a navy for some reason, which is necessary not only for them to invade, but also for the Saxons to invade. So we got some issues going on with that. And what else? Yeah, the game is driving me fucking nuts. Okay. I think I'm caught up. I've placed the barbarian reinforcements in the leaders. Oh, I don't think I mentioned the Franks also converted to a kingdom as well, and also do not wish to become barbarians. That had happened before, but I hadn't. Yeah, Persia's not big enough to transition to an empire. They basically would have had to get control of Oriens, which they wanted to do, but now they're getting slammed. So that's not an issue. Heresy's aging. Do I got any? There's one. I thought I had one. Okay. We did the reinforcements, so we'll go to the events. But, you know, I've done almost nothing, but it's taken me a fair amount of time. I think that is all I'm doing tonight, unless I wake up later. And tomorrow's actually the first time back dancing for a couple hours, so I don't know, you know, what that's gonna play out as in my life. But yeah. So what do we have that's new? We have a Briton kingdom coming, these invasions coming in Britain, a bunch of people who can't escape Rome because they've been subjugated, and some new kingdoms. I don't know. All right. Okay, I started working through the events phase. The Romans just got one. The Alemanni, well, the pink player just got one. The green player, the Alemanni, got a commerce event, or green got a commerce event that affects one of their nations. It's got to be a civilized nation. The only one is the Alemanni, and it can't do anything. This adds to the trade value, which is our commerce value, which it has to do with shipping, and we're not on a coastal province. The Alani picked up the yellow player picked up a revolt card. This ended up affecting a random player. It ended up affecting the Franks, but pink got to pick which province, and they took the worst one, and that led me to an interesting moment. Let me take a quick look. Oh, okay, we got to deal with that one. Which is, the Franks are a fetus. Fetus is a relationship between a barbarian and a civilized nation. They can't have this anymore as a civilized nation. But it's not in the breach effects, and the breach effects say that the barbarian has to run away. I don't think that's the case. I think what happens is the fetus relationship just disappears because we're no longer eligible. We're not actually breaching it, and we occupy that territory. I'll tell you this much: the Romans can't do anything about it. I mean, they don't want to move up there. This is really outside their realm. Let's take a look at the blues event again. Play immediately one. Roll a die roll check for a randomly chosen nation you control, applying the following modifiers. Well, I think it does not count for the Blemmies who are a new raider. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 5, 6. It's going to hit the Ostrogoths. Okay. It doesn't say civilized nation. Maybe it means it, but I don't know. Let's check. I don't trust this because it certainly could apply to non-civilized nations, but again, I just don't trust it. And we gotta find the events here. This is 02. And it just says nation here as well. Okay. I just don't trust what's on cards. So what happens to them? Well, did they have a named leader? Who were we doing again? The end, if I remember. I think it was the Ostrogoths. Okay, so the Ostrogoths have just one level of military leadership, so they don't get a bonus for that or anything. And we roll a 0, which is not a 0, it's a 10 in this game. So he ages 3 spaces immediately. I'm not sure what happens if a barbarian ages beyond the limit of the chart. Nothing happens, but they may have to make an immediate check. Hold on. They do. So they may have just transitioned to a kingdom totally not where they want to be. So now we find the transition rolls again, and it's a d10 for every 10 they have in their treasury. No. Their horde is in a barbarian area, so it's +2, but now I basically need a 6 or higher. And I succeed in avoiding that. That would have been really terrible because we want to get down into Italy to transition. So we get our points. Speaking of points, we did not add 10 points for the Franks for becoming a kingdom in Gaul, and 10 points for the Alemanni for becoming a kingdom in Gallia Sept. Okay, before we go down to diplomacy, we'd handle the raids, so what's interesting here is there was no chance for the Briton raiders who were in place, the Saxons, the Angles, to raid again, so their markers got removed. They'll be able to raid again as barbarians, but this turn they have their invasion. They're actually disallowed from raiding. But we ended up with 3 raiding powers. The Colchis or whatever, or Couchants, up here. These new Blemmies here, who are kind of weird because they can only raid every other turn, therefore they never get a bonus off the raid marker and can never physically exist on the board as far as I can tell, unless there's some kind of special benefit somewhere. And the Hibernians up here, and all of them got kind of maximal results, that 7 to 10 range, where they got 3 victory points each. And then we got the bonus caravan here. This is just a $5 caravan, and that's down in Egypt, which is Byzantine territory right now. However, it's pillaged and raided. I don't think that has an effect on it, but I'm not sure. I know if they went through a barbarian, the barbarian would get a chance of pillaging it. And now it's time to shuffle the dip deck and figure out who gets any. I ended up taking a nap, and rather than sleeping the night through, went to bed a little early. And now it's a little past my normal bedtime, but I was thinking, oh, I'll go up and at least get through part of the administrative phase. Little did I realize I had to work through a fair amount of stuff to get here. And, you know, I mean, that's the thing. I really think the turns take a couple hours each, at least. There are more kingdoms in play. Only the Romans had diplomatic points, so they're the only ones who got cards. And as empires, they get an extra one in addition to what their king provided. And I think we stop now for a bit and go to the economic phase. Maybe tomorrow we'll start some of it. A whole bunch of new kingdoms out there. We find ourselves in a bit of a problem. Persia is the oldest, well, but that's not absolutely clear because we got the Britons here, but then it goes by numbering, and so they go first. They get a big handful of cards, lots of yummy reform cards, no money. How did I blow all my money? Well, I don't remember. But I assume it was building up my army so I could face the Romans, figuring, okay, maybe I'd end up with a better choice. But now I'm stuck with one of these. And it's a pity. Reform cards are kind of nice. You can see some of these would have reduced my age, which of course is good. That prevents me from dying. Some would give me more money. None of that's available. Instead, I am stuck with, first of all, spending $5. Then I have to spend 3. I lose my leader, which is a shame because he's kind of good. And gain 2 age. This is not a good combination. That 3 extra bucks is coming off of $2, so I lose $2, but now I suffer a bankruptcy. This ages me 2 more spaces. Uh-oh. Now, I don't immediately... Okay, well, we'll leave this alone for a moment. During the preceding administration, if it can't pay all it increases its decline level. So I gotta find where the decline markers are. They're over here, unfortunately. That's gonna cost me more money. As well. I draw an administrative card additionally and see if I get another calamity, and this one is breach of alliances. Must breach all alliances with other nations. May not ask new alliances this turn. Fetish and submitted nations are not affected by this card. This is neither of those. We're not an empire. But I think we actually lose our client state. It's not spelled out. I'll throw him back where he belongs. Okay. Other than that, I think we're okay. Now, what happens to a kingdom? Okay, in addition. Okay, that's fine. And we can't go bankrupt again in terms of, I think we'd still lose units if we end up unable to pay our maintenance due to overall costs. But this is not a good set of cards for us. The calamity didn't really affect us much. Now, I'm trying to figure out what else. Oh, I wanted to look up the aging of kingdoms. What happens when a kingdom gets old? I think we just get up to double decline. A kingdom checks for transition for empire. Oh, but that's not a big deal. It can only happen if you're big, if I recall correctly. I don't know if you make this check if they don't have the 3. I mean, it's kind of a weird situation. I'm gonna have to look in the errata for that. But anyway, we're not up to that point yet where the kingdom, because otherwise kingdoms will last forever kind of in decline if they don't get big. But I don't know that that's a terrible thing. You know, you had old kingdoms lasting for this entire period, basically. They didn't tend to disappear. And the only way you could disappear them is by wiping them from the map, basically, which is pretty unlikely. So I try to look at the changelog for the kingdom. I'm saying, wait a minute, Mesopotamia got charged too. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, basically $6 missing from me. That's it. I look like I'm, you know, collapsing here. I lose whatever they gave me, which is $1 or $2. So call that like $7. I'm still generating quite a bit of income here. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I hate the idea of working through the whole income thing, but I'm going to have to start doing that with the new kingdoms. So I'm going to, I guess, try to calculate it from 2 directions. If I'm like 6, what did I say, 6, I don't remember, $6 or $7, maybe $8 down, that's going to put me in the mid-30s or in the low 30s. So now let me see if I follow the actual income calculation rules, which I've been trying to avoid doing. And it should be a lot easier with the smaller new kingdoms because they have nothing. So I'm coming out with about a $10 difference, but I didn't look up the commerce, whether or not they get this. They have ports along it, but no shipping, and I don't know if that fucking matters. That $10 difference, 5 of it comes from the decline marker, so I'm about right. And I'd also forgotten the Romans are sitting in Babylon. I didn't count them. The map is such a mess of tiny little stuff. It's really hard to keep track of it. It's much easier to do the more complicated economic sequence in EU for me, although, again, the main reason may be that game had a nice little chart, a nice little sheet to track it on, and maybe if I made myself some kind of sheet, I could get the discipline rather than trying to do the crap that I'm doing here. But no such sheets were provided. The only thing it is the victory point sheet. This is certainly too complicated a process not to provide such a thing. So let me see commerce. What the fuck? Okay, we're trying to find that. That's not easy to find because we go into, hey, cities. Okay, now we're doing the collection. Hey, you collect commerce. Well, where the fuck do I find that? Well, I gotta keep looking. No, it's not here. Okay, so then I keep looking, and I'm not fucking seeing it. Here we go. It's down here. So they like give you starting income, then they tell you which type of nation gets which type of income, and then they go to some other incomes here for no apparent reason. At least one coastal city not in revolt, but I don't get the monopoly value, I don't think, unless I read that again. I'd have to control all the coastal cities. I think I actually do, so I get, there seems to only be, there seem to be none, actually. The only anchor is over here, and that doesn't exist. Fucking hell. So now, what we do to check what the fuck is going on is we go back to the Persia chart to see what they're actually getting, if they got any commerce. And it looks like they did not, so I'm right with that. So I'm looking at a difference between 23 and some unknown number in the 30s. Let's try again. So yeah, I'm coming up with 2 numbers still. If I go with negatives, I'm coming up around 30. because I didn't count the fucking decline. If I go with positives, I'm coming up with like 24. And I'm not sure if there's something I missed here. Provinces, cities, capital. That all sounds like I got there. Yeah, I got no fucking clue. You know, and I knew this was going to happen if I switch from one version, from one way of doing the income, which is use what they have on the sheet, which I did double check before, but now I'm looking at more on the map, and it's just fucking impossible because there's so much crowding. God, I hate this game. I really fucking do. I've managed to get it within one of each other. I realized one thing I was forgetting was the $2 off map area. That would get me up to 26. I probably am miscounting by undercounting rather than taking things away. So I'm gonna go with 28 as my number. Actually, no, I can't remember because there's this fucking vacuum now. I don't know. It's somewhere between 26 and 28, and I don't remember which number I got. I'm going to go with 27 as my number at this point, right? 28 was my minus. I think 27 was my plus. Yeah, let's go with the 28 because I think that's the best answer. For paying maintenance, that drops me to 16 total. I'm going to spend 6 of that, leaving me $10 for a military option, I think, if I get it, or a passive and penalties, and buy myself 3 crappy infantry. That'll give me enough troops that I can keep wasting my army trying to destroy the Byzantines. Not so much for anything other than that 20 victory point limit. I don't think there's a way a kingdom can be destroyed easily. So what I'll be doing is, you know, hoping to expand again and gain victory points some other time. But when I look at my victory point chart, and this is the kind of decision you have to make all the time, I am really unlikely to gain a lot of these victory points by gaining territory on the Byzantines. So whether or not I you know, go more defensive or whatever, so I might as well burn my units away. There is the danger that I could lose everything, you know, but I think I can keep Persia alive at some minimal level, and I probably can't get more than my 20 victory points that I'm getting this turn over the rest of the life of Persia, except by getting these 20 victory point per turn things as long as the Byzantines last. A whole lot easier to handle. The Britons, they got a draw of 3 cards. They're 2 base plus 1 bonus card. And I had 1 military option, 2 passives. I'm like, passive's not so good. So I spend the $10 because essentially I have, I believe, no units I can build this turn. However, I'm not going to make a lot of income, and that's a little worrisome, actually. Which is something I should keep in mind. And in fact, I may be in trouble. But anyway, I spent the 10, and I got kind of a crappy card. 2 added to the age. That sucks. And nothing really going well except I get my leader. And then I look at the passives, and, well, this one sucks. But maybe not as bad as this, given the cost. But this one's not that bad. It just is a breach of alliances. Sure, there's 1 age on it, but it was a pretty decent choice. Unfortunately, that is not what we got. And I may have screwed up by paying 10 on the military, because now I go to the income, and we can try to look at the income here. And we're going to do this one because it's very small in detail in a way that we haven't done the income on the bigger, older countries, because I've been largely doing them as, you know, a change log. So let's find it. We're a kingdom. We're going to get our city, provinces, and capital money. Okay, so that adds up 2, 3, 4, plus capital brings it to 9. Commerce, well, I'm not sure what commerce is in this case. So I will get 1 for a sea zone where I have a port. I'm assuming that's over here in the British Ocean, not in the German Ocean, because the port is limited there, but the land area actually connects to both, so I'm not really sure of that. So that puts us to 9, maybe 10, who knows. And we don't control all of the coastal cities. Do we? We might. We control, I believe, all of the coastal cities there, so we get another one. That brings us up to 11. The question is about Germanica. We actually control all the coastal cities there, too. I'm going to give us the money for that as well, I think. Like, to me, that's like this. It's like on two different oceans. So that'll put us up to 12, just because. Okay. So that's 12, and there are no caravans, there's no tribute. Okay. So we gain 12 bucks. And now, though, we have to pay 1 for each unit, and I think we have 6. Yep. And that drops us down to 11, which is a little less than we had this time. We're going to have to increase our income, but we could pay for a military card. We can't pay for the other kind of card, the reform card. Okay, and that'll be for the Britons. I screwed up and shouldn't have done them first. It's not going to make much difference. This should have been on the Franks. So I got to make my Frankish card draw. They are not going to get an extra if I... that may be actually wrong. Let me look. Yeah, they do not have an administrative bonus. Right, doing the Britons. Yes, their number is higher, but they had a higher age. And now the next one is not the Franks, it's the Alemanni. I found an interesting thing. A kingdom vassal collects its income normally. This was an important little line in there. Because, you see, kingdoms can't be made into vassals. Oh, wait, maybe here. See, this is submitting a kingdom. That may be it. No more than 3 provinces in its Yeah. We had this, the first time I played, I had this happening with the Armenians and such not. They were changing hands constantly. It turned out to not be an effective use of military force to go conquer those things. So yeah, so this is submitted, but it collects it stays submitted because nothing changed there. I thought only barbarians could submit, but that is not the case. Okay, very fine. So my draw was actually kind of shitty. 2 different cards, so I only had 1 choice. I was worried that I didn't have much money for the Alemanni, and I'm actually worried about the Franks getting, not getting a passive card where they'll immediately go bankrupt. But yeah, I had enough money to cover it, and I got a not too bad card off of that by taking the military choice, where it did increase the age, but I lost a unit, which actually reduces my cost, sort of, at my upfront cost, but I'm going to be able to buy more units. Franks managed to get a couple of passive cards, so they chose that. Well, they had to choose that. They didn't have enough money otherwise. And they got a fairly decent one. It did increase their age, give them a few more bucks. But they got one other problem, after I did their income, which isn't too bad, is they have a revolt sitting in their place. And I found one of the effects of religion. So they get a +1 to the die roll for having units present. But the area is not under heresy. However, the national religion is different from the areas. Remember, I chose to remain pagan or be Aryan or whatever. This is a Catholic area right now. Didn't really think about that. So I get rerolls equal to my combat bonus, which is 1. And I've got to, so I'm at a net of +1, and I've got to get above a 9 or better. Otherwise, I take a hit. Okay, well, I succeeded, so I'm going to stop re-rolling, and we get rid of the rebellion there. I turned the video off at a time when it's not really a good time to do so. Now I will be going over to the Romans. I don't feel like facing them right now. Got home from dancing. Had a little too much to drink probably, and you know, I'm a little sluggish. I'm not really hungover, but I'm a little unenergetic all day. I've been just sitting around watching videos. I was hoping my coffee would activate me, but it did not. And instead, I'm kind of not really ready to face up to the complexities of dealing with the economics on either of these. And it's going to be pretty complicated, to tell you the truth, with all the submitted nations and everything. Okay, so for the Romans, they fired off a pretty good reform card. Now, they may be in trouble because their income is not going to be very good. They're starting to lose stuff. But the question of what their income is comes to mind. The same problem as I've had elsewhere, where the numbers just aren't matching. So I tried adding up their income manually using the rolls, and I came to, I think, around 35. Obviously, I'll have to do this several times. It's going to take about a half hour total each time. No, I mean, it's going to take, I'm counting on a half hour total to count it up a couple of times. But when I look at the changelog concept of it, right, they started at 67. I've lost Britannia, that's 4. Northern Gaul, that puts me to 9. I didn't count this 10, and you know what, I didn't add this. Oh, these each add 10. Holy shit. Seriously. We got plus 20 on capitals here? Yeah. Okay, so they only give plus 10 on capitals, but Rome gives a plus 10 as well, I think. So that may be what I'm seeing. I don't know. I certainly hadn't added those in, so that would get me into the 50s, which is probably too fucking high. But if I only add 10 for the capital instead of 20 for these 2 capital markers. Remember, Rome needs this because it's got them 1 fortification level, which is different from everything else. Anyway, and of course, I don't know, you know, are any of these cities bigger or smaller than they were? So it's almost like there's just no way that I'm going to be able to get this number right regularly. But yeah, what I was looking at was a base of 67 minus 9 minus 19, 57, 46. I think I'm coming out with about 46 anyway. Then plus all of these subjugated nations. So yeah, if I get the 35, if I add the capital in there, I think that's something I hadn't gotten to yet. So I'm actually getting there. Okay, I'm gonna go with 46 as their income. Actually managed to build up the maximum Western Roman units that we can, which means there's a pile of libertés, equivalent, the backsides of them that haven't been able to be built up. That's fine. And we have still a pretty full treasury. And this is important because bankruptcy, and this is why these little cracks are here, an empire that takes bankruptcy can collapse. Now, what I didn't realize is when Rome collapses, it becomes something. It becomes a Gallo-Roman kingdom. There's no card for it. But it's old, it's got a treasury, and it's made up of whatever's left of Gallia. And it becomes a limited number of units with a capital, which you find on the backside of a Roman fleet. And then there's two other kingdoms that are inactive. They also have capitals. And I don't know what happens with this. This doesn't seem to have any victory points. It probably can't be destroyed very easily because it's a kingdom. But it could be subjugated or whatever. So we'll see and try to figure out and guess what is meant by this when we get to it. All right, on to finally the Byzantines. Here I'm happy with the Byzantine cards. I got a reform and a passive. I paid the big money for the reform, and yeah, it gave me some of the money back. But it comes with a revolt and an age. And the passive, well, my king is not that great a military leader, so, or my emperor. So I don't know, I'd lose the Caesar too, because I don't have a named military leader. But so I guess it's kind of cool that I get to use my leaders. But on the other hand, I'm overall not that impressed with having paid $30 for, well, I guess it's worth it. Because I only paid actually, let's call it 25 minus another 10. Puts me to $15 to use my leaders, and I got a revolt out of it. Yay me. My first count in both directions is terribly off. They clearly are nowhere near each other. I came to 35 when counting up what the Byzantines actually possess, and 55 when trying to subtract things like Greece and Moesia that they've lost. Which way does it go? Shit, I don't know. We'll just keep trying to reconcile it until we get to numbers that kind of match. Great fun. Both La Grande Guerre and Europa Universalis have income systems that are equally complex. The big difference is this is very volatile. So it's not like, oh, I added another colony that I just have to put down on the colonies row. The EU one contains a nice spreadsheet that you can track all these changes on. This is probably, again, too volatile for the spreadsheet to work. La Grande Guerre, you don't need it. You can look at the few cities that change hands and just count them each turn, and it's really not each year or whatever the income comes in. It's fairly seldomly, and it's really not a big focus in the game. Here, though, it's just painful, and trying to determine what's what in these little spaces that don't have, very easy to read materials inside of them. Yeah, they're fine if they're clear, but if there's units in them and everything covering up crap, it is really a fucking mess. I've been very sporadic about is collecting the victory point, probably missing several turns worth of, is collecting the victory points for the Romans that they get for each of their provinces. And I gave them their points this time. But, they are so far in the lead in this game, and I don't see that reversing anytime soon. Not sure what they've got left. Obviously, the Franks should still not be a bad power if, you know, things went historically. I don't think they have anything left except for the remnants of the Empire, which don't look like they create victory points. Not sure either way, but it feels to me like the remainder of the game, other than the Franks, is going to be trying to limit other people from gaining big victory points, which may be, you know, difficult or easy. I made an assassination attempt on Attila. I had an event card. It's a really hard thing in this game to remember, well, in any game for me to remember all my little event cards and stuff, and in this with the event cards, the diplomacy cards, all that stuff, that's hard enough. You know, it's like a harder hand situation than you see in, say, Here I Stand or something like that. Again, there's so much in this game that just is not designed to make it playable, right? You know, which is sort of the opposite to what the Britannia system that it shares a great deal with is designed to be. Britannia has one hard thing. You gotta keep paying attention to the cards to see, hey, you know, where do I need to be now to get my victory points? How do I need to set myself up for future turns, whatever. This has that and so many other things. It's like the most painful event management because you have multiple countries. Each player has multiple countries that they're trying to keep track of cards for, and they can all take place. And then add to that completely, you know, non-understandable little chits. You have to look them up every time you want to find something out. And again, you know, Le Grand Guerre used little chits like that too. But there weren't many. Country had one or two. They were the only event mechanism in the game. And you weren't running, you know, you have basically 4 powers that you're paying attention to in the game, I think. Basically the Western and Eastern fronts for the two for the two alliances. Here, it's just a fucking mess. And, you know, like I said, it's hard enough to pay attention to the cards, then you throw these damn chips in too. I think I settled on, hey, I'll make it 49 bucks. Not because of an average or anything. I was able to get to 49 by counting upward. Counting downward is harder. I was able to get around there, but it's hard to tell. Because if you recall right, on the first turn, I was unable to figure out with the Byzantine commerce how they were achieving it. You know, it didn't seem right. So, but we've got other things in play too. We've got things like these revolts and crap like that. Anyway, I was able to also build my maximum and get some cash in play. But now I have to make a decision as to where to deploy my forces. And I'm trying to make that decision up. You know, do I want to keep pounding here? Is there any real advantage to it? Well, if I can get all of Mesopotamia, that's really valuable. But on the other hand, actually I cannot prevent the Huns from creating an empire by putting my troops there. So yeah, I'll focus on the Persians. All my victory points are this way. But my fear is that a Hunnish empire sitting, you know, right outside Constantinople is not something I want to have happen. And I've devoted almost nothing to preventing it. Well, that's it for tonight. I've got my Byzantines in place. I want to suppress some of these damn revolts. They're going to be a problem. Like, I can't get the victory points for the Orions if I don't suppress that revolt. But I also want to take Egypt and start getting folk value from it and everything. This pillage doesn't mean a damn thing because it's just a province. Like, it can't, the raiders can't hurt your income as an empire. So that's gonna, I don't know if that's neat or crappy, whatever. All right, the Ostrogoths are the first gang to move, and they make an attack, now that they're allowed to, into Venice. Whether or not it's an attack, again, the way the rules are written. But anyway, Ricimer here pretty much destroyed the Ostrogoth force, subjugated their horde, which is the one way that they end up staying in Italy, and then had to retreat. But he was assassinated because of that. So now the Ostrogoths have made it into where they want to be, but they're subjugated. So, now they have to kind of hope that Rome collapses real soon. Finally, we're actually able to move because Rome has lost Travaria. They can't, they no longer control northern Gaul, so they no longer control cities that they're not occupying up there. And since we moved out of there, so the Alani could actually, as a subjugated nation, try to attack that. And I sacrificed a couple of units, made a couple attempts, and failed. The first attempts I needed 9s on, the second attempts I needed 10s on, so it's very, very unlikely I'm going to be able to gain anything. I can no longer just cross through other barbarians. These are no longer barbarians, they're kingdoms, so this is really the only route I had. Helvetica is Roman, so I couldn't go through there. So, I was just trying to get myself maybe into a position where I'd be closer to Spain, which is where I want to go. Puts me to the Visigoths, who I think I actually already buried. They have nowhere they can go. They're hemmed in, sitting in Italy, can't get towards Hispania where they want to be. Huns, I've got a problem, a big problem. Right now, I control the Danube with my horde. Great. I think I can control Greece and Moesia. I can't go into Illyricum. That's still Roman. So unless I have some kind of event or something that allows me, who knows, 23 and 52, I don't think so, but who knows, and this is what you gotta do every time you want to look at one. You try to figure out, can I use something? 23 is not, it's just a die roll. 52, if I besiege a capital, I can get extra moves. That, if I'm able to take Constantinople, that would allow me to cross in and grab Asia. An alternative, though, is I might be able to grab Asia anyway by covering Constantinople and making a move. It's just a matter of a number of territories. Right now, Moesia and Greece is 2 areas. Now, if we look at how this is worded, they have to control 3 or more. So here, it's if they control no more than 2 areas, they immediately disappear. So I've got to get another area this turn. Now, they have another half point of area, so I could go grab Sarmatia instead. But again, I may not have the manpower to do that. And then, if I can get other civilized areas. So I'm going to try to optimize how many areas I can take. Attila gives me 3 extra moves with his stack that I can grab shit with, and that might allow me to do something. The issue here, and I screwed this up because these are Greek. Didn't realize that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 provinces. I have to hold 4 of them. I don't think I can get 4 of them without taking Thrace. And my chances of that are just about nothing. Like, I have a negative chance of taking it because I'm a barbarian. My chances of taking Moesia, 1. I think there's just 1 province here. Hard to tell. Looks like a second one's here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus this for now is 7. I still have to take 4. So what we're looking at here was 4, 5, 6. I would need, I can't get to these, so I would need to take Thrace to have 4 provinces in Greece and have the majority. I was counting it as 3 of 4 was great. I would need to have 4 here, 4 here, that's 8 pieces. And then if I wanted to take Sarmatia to get myself the extra half space, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would be 3 more pieces. So what am I at? 11 pieces. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If I didn't lose any pieces and didn't have to spend, didn't have to put more than 1 piece into Thrace to take it, I could conceivably succeed. Doesn't look likely. Another alternative would be to try to take Thrace. If I take that, now I have Greece, I have Moesia, and if I get real lucky, maybe I can take Asia because it looks like it's cheap, but it's hard to tell because I have to find the borders. I think this is part of Cappadocia, hard to tell. Can't tell whether there's a divider here, but there's definitely not one here. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. I would need 3 provinces there, which is a little cheaper. But I think the main thing is I have to take a shot at Byzantium. I probably don't have enough pieces to control areas and survive this. What else can I do with the Huns? I could... Oh, fuck. I forgot to remove pillage chits. This is important because I could try to get victory points and just say, screw it, the Huns are going to die. By the way, this would have been a little bit better if it was still Roman because they're in decline. So if we wanted to siege Constantinople, let's take a look at what we'd be looking at. -1 for barbaric nomads, which is the problem the Alans had as well. The fortification value is a 4. So now I'm at -5. I need a 12 or better. It's also a harbor. Make that a 13 or better. Now, for every 2 units I expend, I could get rid of one of those points. So what were we talking about? Like 14, I think. So I could kill 8 units and get that down to a 10. I don't think there's any chance of me making a Hunnish empire exist, and because I need Thracia for either of my options to work. So I think I'm going to pillage the shit out of stuff? No, because I own all this stuff. I can't get victory points from that. So what else can I do? I kind of don't see anything I can do. I think the Huns are just going to disappear. And, I mean, I could go attack something, but I don't see much value to any of this. For these pieces, this was part of Moesia too. I'm thinking about just attacking them. Do I get points for killing them? Yeah, I get a half victory point per unit for beating up on those things. They're about the only thing I can attack. By attacking these guys, I gave them like 5 victory points and got about 2, which doesn't sound like a good deal. And I submitted them, which I'm not going to mark because the Huns are going to go away in a moment. The only real question is what the hell I want to do with anything at this point. I mean, I have these guys submitted, so I can go pick on these things and get victory points from them. At least that way I'm not giving victory points to other people for killing Huns. After picking on a bunch, I probably should have rented, the Romans could have rented a couple of my units again. I don't know. There's no value to that. Yeah, I was going to say I could have gotten some cash off of it, but it wouldn't give me anything. And I had the option to refuse it this time, so I'm like, well, I need my units. So what the Huns did was they subjugated these 2. They failed on this one. They gathered a total of 8 victory points for the turn, and now they are gone. This is the major player they're the major nation as far as I can tell for the green player. We'll see, you know. I mean, obviously, other things are going to generate more points. I've got 3 things that can turn into kingdoms, etc. But the Huns very clearly are not that impressive. It looks pretty damn hard to engineer the empire, and I'm not sure the empire makes sense. Like, yes, the Huns did settle down, but they didn't become like some massive empire unless they're talking about like the Bulgar Empire or something like that of a later era. I don't know what to call it. I mean, I think this is the historical result, is that they failed, you know, and it looks pretty damn hard to make it succeed. Had the Western Romans not subjugated them, I had a shot because I could have taken Illyria. The problem is Greece is almost impossible to take. Moesia is pretty hard to take with this, and I got to get 3 of them, you know. But I could have had Illyria, Moesia, and maybe Danubis and Sarmatia, maybe. But being subjugated to the Romans, I had no option to get out of that. And so I was not going to gain control of the area. Because not only did I have to, like, let's say I could have taken it from these guys or something, taken enough territories to get the majority of the territories, I still don't trump the empire holding a city, and I'm not allowed to attack that city. The thing for all of this is, now it looks like all this area is Byzantine again, but it's not. They have to reconquer it all. So, you know, there's nothing that easily marks that. There's no control markers or anything like that for the game. I guess I could be writing it down on my sheet, but my sheet has just become such a mess. There's no way to track, you know, this information very easily. So I just got to kind of try to remember it, I guess. I'm going to stop here for a bit again, because I'm looking at the Burgundians and I'm like, what the fuck do I do with them? I don't think I want to turn into a kingdom yet. I can't now. I would have had to do it earlier. So next turn I have to, more or less. But do I really want to launch attacks on the Romans? That doesn't really hasten Rome's fall or anything. The only thing that hastens Rome's fall is bad cards coming out of there, or mismanagement of the economy. I mean, yes, if I had enough force along with the other nations around here that I could take southern Gaul away, that would actually have some impact, but not much. Because the only thing, like for an empire, the only thing that matters, it doesn't matter, you know, how many troops I have or anything. I'm not paying maintenance on that. The thing that matters is that I have enough money for that card. That's it. We're old enough that we can collapse, so yeah. And now it's just really a bad luck event will crush the Romans eventually. But that's not really much I can do to hasten that. So I got to kind of try to figure, do I want to launch an attack because I want to be in Burgundy, which is actually here. So maybe I want to try to push the Alani around or something. But that puts me in a more exposed position. And do I have a city here at Liger? I do. I have a city that I could expand and turn into a capital. I'm not sure if the capitals are right, like the fact that I built a new level 1 city and it turned into a level 2 city. I'm not sure if that's right, but I think it is. Again, it's just not worth trying to figure out at this point. Basically, the way you learn, the experience that I had with EU and even more with La Grande Guerre is that you play a game like this and fuck it up royally. And then play it again sometime. I don't know if I have that kind of patience anymore. And I don't have the impetus, and I explained this right from the beginning, to do that for a Britannia-style game. That was the real problem. Yes, there's other stuff going on here that makes it a little more interesting. But is it enough? You know, something like this, I just feel like should be such a clean game with this kind of design. And instead it's, of course, you know, what I expected from Thibaut, which is a royal damn mess. What I always liked about the Britannia system that's just absolutely missing from this is the, mostly, but in Britannia, there's this, you want to cover a lot of area and get your population, you know, production up. The more spaces you control, the more population growth you get, the bigger you can be, the better you can defend yourself, the better you can recover, all kind of stuff like that. Very simple concept. The accuracy is not particularly, you know, indicative of much, but on a really broad scale, say 50 to 100 year turns or whatever, it does kind of make sense. This game, 25 year turns, some of the Britannia games I think use those, especially as you get into later periods, they use small turn sizes. You're getting into kind of a gray area where the military doesn't really make sense and the population doesn't really make sense. But here, you're not really looking at populations. You're not looking at territory controlled by the population. You're looking at wealth that is controlled by the military aspects of a given nation, whatever that is. And that kind of makes more sense. Well, that makes sense with the civilized. But with the barbarians, you're not even looking at that. The barbarians are just their size. They can all fit wherever they fit, you know, by stacking limitations. And there's really no reason to grab out territory or anything like that. Which is why I'm in this hard position with the Burgundians. I'm like, well, you know, do I go beat up the Alemanni? Well, maybe. What do I get here? Yeah, I get victory points for killing them, and I probably have an advantage by launching an attack, although they can intercept, you know, big deal. I might get an advantage out of submitting them. There's no question towards that. And I do want this space, so I think I'm going to march in there with at least some of my troops. And I probably can intercept the Romans if they come back at me. I really wish the Romans would go away. That would make life a lot easier. But I mean, the point is, there's no real reason for these barbarians to conquer territory unless we're going to settle in it immediately, you know. And we probably are next turn, but you know. Interesting is the Mauritanian units, and I've got the Vandals marching over them right now. Moving the horde in with the attack, because apparently I'm allowed to do that. First of all, the special rules on them are in the Romans. If I had gotten the horde down here, which I couldn't, I don't think, last turn, they might have surrendered this turn. But just moving in, I have to launch an attack. And but the Mauritanian units actually start outside of Mauritania. They start in Mauritania here, which is not in Mauritania, it's in Africa, and they start in Caesarea, which is weird because that's not their kingdom. So I don't know why they're there. I would have been perfectly fine not going that way. In fact, maybe I don't want to attack them. Do I get victory points for attacking them? Probably. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do the fights. All right. I think the one real effect of moving the horde is I don't get the leader campaigns afterwards. And while we wiped out the Mauritanians, except for the mercenary, we were stopped by the Romans. We need to conquer Africa next turn, and we want to be civilized, so we'll see how that works out. I'll put that away later when I have hands. Some people, at least one person, has mentioned something about these trays. These big they have big opening slots, whatever you want to call them, in them. These are from Against the Odds magazine, and they're kind of useful when you want to, you know, have multiple nations or multiple, a lot of counters in one little segmentation, but they actually have a problem. The ridges in them are not very high. And they're not as high as the outer ridges of the counter tray. And like these, the counters fit in the little holes nicely, and you can stack quite a few. Here, if you start stacking many, they fall and slop around quite a bit. And it's kind of disappointing. The reason for that is you got a magazine game in the map and the counter sheets all stacked in here with a plastic thing on top of it to hold it into place. So, in terms of a device for handing you the game, they're pretty good. But in terms of these reserve counter sheets counter trays that I use them for, they're kind of iffy. I would much rather, I probably should be using these, except I kind of like the idea of segmenting by nation instead of having one nation in multiple spaces. Why am I talking about that? I don't know. Why do I talk about anything? Why am I on here? Okay, so that's the Vandals. Why are you watching me be on here? And we'll move on to the Swebi, who are subjugated. And again, I don't think kingdoms can be destroyed. Because I was looking at the rules and I'm like, if I capture a kingdom, that's what causes a capital of a kingdom. That's what causes it to be subjugated, and I am not sure. Then I have to leave, and now I think there's a tiny little kingdom there that's a subject nation of mine, and you can kind of look at that as, look, historically, things like the Catalans, for example, were, I don't know if conquered is the right word for it, but were absorbed into larger hegemonies and remain something of a problem. And in a way, that's the case here. You still get the victory points. You might get you get a unit, which I have been forgetting to give to the Romans. Well, no, you get it immediately on subjugation. You don't get it after that. But I don't think I gave them their Swebi unit, which I'm not going to try to go back and fix. But yeah. So you get a unit from the subjugated nation as a mercenary for the rest of existence, unlike the mercenary card, as far as I can tell. And then what? It doesn't raise troops for you anymore, but it gives you victory points, and I believe it gives you income, and it raises its own income, so it's kind of a neat situation. It only gets half its victory points, though, which is a reason why, like, subjugating the Franks is an iffy thing. But anyway, I don't know where I am. I'm about to play the Swebi and try to figure out what the hell they're up to. I think I know what I was going on about. So what you have is this Alemanni state that is part of Rome. It's just not well integrated. It's a city that's large enough and barbarian, and has enough of this barbarian population that it could be problematic for them. It could spread if there's spaces that are not governed by anyone particularly. But it can't spread into Roman area, by the way I'm looking at it. And so I don't know, it's kind of like a state within a state or something like that. The best way I can put it. Key problems I have with the game is these things are not intuitive to me. Okay, like Europa Universalis, La Grande Guerre, the concepts behind what's going on is pretty intuitive, so it's easy to align things with it. But with this, it's hard to tell, why can't kingdoms be destroyed? Why can't this happen? I feel like a lot more discussion in the game should have been present. And honestly, both La Grande Guerre and Europa Universalis, I think, gave more discussion in a sort of designer arguing why the game works the way it does. It's incorporated into the rules. I don't feel like that's here. I feel like you've got something much more procedural in nature, and if that's not, if you can't hook into it and understand it right away. So for example, I think the event for the American Revolution and how it's influenced by the existence of French nearby colonies is actually explained and discussed in the event as to why it's triggered the way it is. That may not be the optimal way to deliver that information. I find it particularly helpful to have kind of some flavor and historical background right in the rules, although that can clutter up the rules and make them harder to cope with. I would say War and Peace used to do that too. It would have like a section that would explain what the rule is trying to do in a very broad sort of sense and why, and then go, and I don't remember if the new version does this, and then go into, okay, and here's how it actually works with the procedural rules. This does not do that. This boils that away. And unlike EU and Lagrange, this is a more abstracted situation, so it's harder to understand, you know, the concept of what the Alemanni are as a subjugated nation and why they can't be destroyed completely. That just doesn't come clearly to me. You know, to me, in some extent, that will eventually get absorbed into something else, you know, and the idea that it will always be there is somewhat disturbing because it will never reach empire, so it can't collapse and disappear that way. And I don't think that there's any way in the rules to make things go away. I honestly don't. The Burgundians, I can't think of anything to do with the Suebi. They don't get victory points unless they're in Spain. I can't get to Spain because the Romans control Gaul and I'm subjugated, and I do not have anything that lets me get out of that. I checked with the Huns, so I think they're just done. And that'll put me to these guys. It's definitely just an expectations thing that's disappointing. The Suebi decision, where there's no real value to doing anything. When I'm faced with something like that, you know, hey, there are some games where that's the case. The Britannia-style game, there's almost never anything like that. Sure, you might say, there's no reason for me to move anything this turn, fine. But in general, every few turns you get an extra population and you want to go attack some, you know, you have to go do something, basically. And, you know, your goals are such that you just have these mechanistic little actions that you take. I don't know that that changes anything, but it does feel kind of like a disconnect to me to not want to do anything whatsoever in the game. So this just sucked for the Heruli. They did a movement with their horde into Venetia, where the Ostrogoths were. Unfortunately, I submitted the Ostrogoths, and now I got to get back out, and I'm no longer in Italy. If I hadn't attacked with my horde, I would get at least, you know, a couple extra campaigns where maybe I could bust up Roman stuff. I don't know. But the thinking that's involved in this game is alien, you know. Again, that doesn't necessarily matter. Like, if the game was easy enough to approach, that alien thinking could become a pattern that works, you know, that you start to absorb with multiple plays. The question is it worth the effort? And that's the consistent question with this. Is it worth the effort that I had to put in with EU, with Lagrange? Maybe more of an effort in some ways. This seems actually worse in some ways than either of them. Again, maybe because of the thinking is not intuitive in any sense. To be able to tackle, you know, the situations well. When you take something very abstracted and make it obscure as well as to why you're trying to do things. Anyway, that ends up getting rid of this, but putting a a subjugation marker now on the Ostrogoths. And they're no longer pro-Roman, so that territory switches from pro-Roman to pro-Heruli. And I gotta try to remember who owns what relationships. Crap, picked the wrong people, two of them near each other, can't read what's in these things, so I thought the dark brown were the Heruli. No, they're not, they're the Gepidae, and I think I'm gonna leave things as they are, but just swap out the forces. It looks to me like I moved out of Danubius. I can't tell because this border is almost invisible. You can get closer and closer and you still can't see it. It looks like Danubius just keeps going here, but no, they're in Illyrium, so now I have to do a horde movement to get back to Danubius to make that my kingdom, because otherwise next turn I don't get the victory point bonus, the full victory point bonus for the kingdom. It's probably not that big a deal. I don't need a lot of motion here. But I do have to now start looking all the places. So Pannonia, where's Pannonia? Is that where I'm sitting? Is that somewhere else? This is Dalmatia. Is Pannonia here? I don't know where the fuck Pannonia is. I thought it was right in here. Oh, no, it's up here. Okay, so that's in Illyria. So I want that. Yeah, and I gotta try to get myself into positions there, and I want all provinces of Danubius. Okay, so it looks to me like I want to be in Danubius, but I also want to be in Pannonia, which I don't think is part of Danubius. Like, it's hard to tell. Maybe I'll look in the Gazetteer, but again, look at all the difficulty trying to cope with this fucking horrid map. Kind of a familiarity thing, which is I haven't seen many of these transitions. I may be doing something horrible here. I'm trying to grab a couple of cities to get a little bit more income. If I grab Epirus and this, that's worth $4. That's almost as much as dominating the provinces of Illyria. Which do I want to do? Danubius isn't going to make me a lot of cash, so I don't want to start out with that, although that is my goal next turn overall. But I want to get as many pieces as I can, and that's kind of an iffy thing. I think actually I'll want to do this. I don't know how many there are in Illyricum, though. That's the problem. I don't know how big it is. So again, I go back to the Gazetteer because the map is fucking unreadable. And how many provinces are there? And is this an error? Maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 provinces. So I need 4 of them to control that. Whereas I can get almost as much money if I take these 2 and I have a better chance of taking Pannonia. Screw it. You know, I mean, it's just the level of thinking and counting and trying to discern what's going on with the map and the clutter on it and everything. It just fucking doesn't do it for such an abstract representation. It's like, I mean, if it wasn't abstract, look, EU is not this big a problem, right? And it's not anywhere near as abstract. And part of the problem is that abstraction. But the thing is, part of the problem is the fluidity, these being able to conquer lots of things in the course of these 25-year turns just by moving pieces instead of like there being peace treaties and formalizations that you can map to your economic sheet and say, yeah, this is what's going to change next turn in advance. All the effort is really put into really piddly little shit in this game because of the type of game that it is and the representation that it is. And then being able to reason over that piddly little shit, which is a level I can't get to. I'm still struggling with the representation of the board. And constantly having to look up rules. Which is to be expected. I mean, I do expect that in something of this level of poorly written rules. It's not really the complexity, it's that there's a lot of special cases. And Thibault is really good at doing lots and lots of special cases, and I knew that was going to come out of this. Really good at, I don't know. So this was always the thing that I looked at with EU. Not so much with Le Grand Guerre, but maybe to some extent, which was, wow, instead of taking a generalized abstraction and trying to make that as realistic as possible, instead that game was all these little teeny things stuck together. Now in this case I'm looking up, hey, the barbarians being able to conquer things without an actual siege, which I kind of need, and that's a 50-50 chance. And another fun thing, and there's probably some errata to handle this, but maybe not. I pulled an event, Scarcity Public. Now, if this comes up as an event card, that's fine. But this causes a scarcity marker in an affected area, and I'll roll the area and everything. The incomes will be reduced to 3/4 unless it already reduced by plague, whatever, I don't know. And this can reduce the reduction by granary provinces the nation has. Great. This is something different from famine, and I don't know why granaries affect it, but whatever. But this is removed at the end of the turn. So it can have no effect. Now I'm going to leave it in play through the end of the turn. I think it should be removed when it's important, which is at the end of the economic phase, the administrative phase. That's when it should be removed. Again, I can fix this quickly, but this is the level of crappy, like, design thought that went into this, right? Like an inattention to detail where it's as though it hasn't been play tested, you know? I mean, any play tester worth their salt would say, this does not work the way you have it written. And the same is true in EU and Le Grand Guerre. It's not a matter of translation. It's the rules just are shoddy. They have not gone through the level of review. And did I expect better? Not particularly. But I'm just so pissed at this point that I'm starting to point out every goddamn little piece of shit that I find, because this is what you go through trying to play it the first few times. And it's not just the first time. I've gone through through these other games. It's not a cost of you're going to play it once and it's going to be a miserable experience and then it's going to be wonderful. You deal with this every time, and the question is, how good a picture is the game giving you? Is it good enough to be worth all this hassle? And unlike EU, unlike Le Grand Guerre, unlike La Révolution Française, the answer is no. More in alignment with Hispania. But I still go back to Hispania, and I may still go back to this every now and then. That's going to put us to these Epithalates, who probably are going to be trying to set up a kingdom for next turn as well. I have gone long enough on this video. I think the next one's probably going to be an hour with the amount of complaining I'm doing. I'm going to load up turn 5 at this point, and that'll get me away again. You know, anything to step away from it. The pain is I do kind of want to get through it. Not just to get through the game, but and certainly not to show anymore. I really don't think that there's anything to show here until and unless I get a grasp of this, which will not be in the next couple plays of the whole game, right? Like I said, it takes 3 or 4 plays of games that are this much of a mess for me to start getting a feel for it. The question is only whether or not I will have them anywhere near each other, you know? Because like Hispania has never really caught me. Sometimes I have played it twice in a row. It has just never really caught me. And I fear this is the same kind of thing. Even though it's got some, and Hispania does too, even though it's got some nice views of what's happening or something, there's enough getting in the way that I'm left saying, I don't know if I'm playing this game right at all. I do not know. And, maybe if I had a copy of the revised rules in paper and wrote up a bunch of questions like I did with Le Grand Guerre, I could start to get a grasp on this. But I honestly don't think the basic abstracted concepts behind this game, right? Those are the things that aren't clear. Why is it that hordes weren't supposed to be able to attack? What was being implied by that? And then why is it that the rules were reversed on that? What's the thinking going on there? That's the stuff I can't grasp. It feels like the rule was intended to mean something, and then a patch was put into place that I'm not sure. Should I get my campaigns now? Should I not? What the fuck?